tensions between the United States and Iran are once again in global focus as both sides prepare for a second round of negotiations over Iran's nuclear program. With military movements in the region and diplomatic signals sending mixed messages, the world is watching closely to see whether these talks will lead to a breakthrough or push the region closer to confrontation. Just days before the upcoming negotiations, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio acknowledged that discussions with Iran would be complicated, highlighting the deep political and ideological differences between the two sides. Diplomacy first, but military pressure remains. According to U.S. officials, President Donald Trump prefers a diplomatic solution and a negotiated settlement. However, Washington has also increased its military presence in the Middle East, sending warships to the region as a precautionary measure. American officials say this buildup is intended to protect U.S. forces from potential threats rather than signal immediate military action. At the same time, Trump's envoys, Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, are reportedly traveling to participate in key meetings following the first round of talks held earlier in Oman. The second round of negotiations is expected to take place in Geneva, a city often associated with high-level international diplomacy. Iran's position: sanctions must be part of the deal. From Iran's perspective, officials insist that diplomacy can only succeed if sanctions relief is included in negotiations. Iran's Deputy Foreign Minister, Majid Takhravanchi, stated that Tehran is prepared to consider compromises, but only if Washington shows equal willingness to make concessions. Iran argues that negotiations must be based on mutual commitments. Officials reject the idea that Iran should limit its nuclear program without receiving economic relief in return. While discussions continue around nuclear enrichment levels, Iranian representatives have made it clear that zero enrichment is not an option currently under consideration. Mixed signals and growing uncertainty. Despite ongoing talks, political messaging from Washington has created uncertainty. Statements suggesting possible regime change in Iran have raised concerns among Iranian officials, who describe such comments as contradictory to diplomatic efforts. Iranian representatives say that private diplomatic conversations appear more moderate than public political statements. Still, uncertainty remains, especially given past conflicts and the fragile trust between the two countries. Economic pressure inside Iran. The impact of long-standing sanctions is deeply felt within Iran. Reporting from Tehran by journalists from BBC highlights severe economic challenges facing ordinary citizens. Inflation has surged dramatically, with basic goods such as rice, cooking oil, and poultry rising sharply in price. The national currency continues to weaken against the dollar, making daily life increasingly difficult for many families. Analysts note that while sanctions play a major role, years of economic mismanagement and corruption have also contributed to the crisis. Iranian protesters and global reactions. Meanwhile, Iranian protesters both inside and outside the country express frustration and confusion over shifting U.S. policy. Some activists say early political statements from Washington encourage protests, but ongoing negotiations with Iranian authorities have left many feeling abandoned. Large demonstrations have taken place in cities around the world, with protesters demanding international attention to human rights issues rather than focusing solely on nuclear negotiations. The issue also surfaced at international gatherings such as the Munich Security Conference, where political disagreements and competing narratives about Iran's future became increasingly visible. Regional risks, diplomacy or conflict. Experts warn that failure in diplomacy could have serious consequences for the entire Middle East. Iranian officials state that any military conflict would be damaging for all sides, not just Iran, and could destabilize the wider region. For now, both sides publicly express hope that negotiations will continue peacefully. However, neither side appears fully confident that an agreement is guaranteed. A critical moment ahead. As negotiations move forward, the coming weeks may determine whether diplomacy can overcome decades of mistrust. The stakes remain extremely high, not only for the United States and Iran, but for global stability. For now, the world waits to see whether these talks will lead to a new agreement, or mark the beginning of another dangerous chapter in Middle Eastern geopolitics.